Greetings! I am Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is once again Magic Monday. Today we're going to start talking about deck construction. I wanted to get a little into that before I finished everything else. I've been sort of scattering the different things about Magic I've been talking about, but I felt this was a good time to bring in some deck construction tips. So, when you're building your deck, there's a couple of things you want to think about. Of course, I've talked about them before, talking about the different colors you want to play, because that restricts a lot of what you're going to do. It sort of breaks down what kind of cards you're going to use, but you're going to want to think about what type of deck you want to use. So I'm going to describe 4 types of decks, and you can sort of use one of these archetypes as an example, or do some kind of combination hybrid of them. So the first deck type is aggro. An aggro deck is very fast, it's very made to throw out damage really quick. It traditionally uses a lot of small creatures, a lot of cheap spells. You're able to get things out really quickly and start going on the offensive very quickly. It's built to be speed. I've built some aggro decks before. Green aggro is one way of doing it, red aggro, white aggro. You can do aggro for any of them. Traditionally, blue and black are probably less able to do aggro, but you still can. It's made to have very cheap things which you can throw out and maybe throw small enchantments on, small spells too, to enhance them, to get damage very quickly, and you're not thinking about the damage coming back to you, you're just thinking about dealing as much damage to your opponent as quickly as possible, to take them out very quickly, to go bam, 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 speed, attack, and destroy. That's an aggro deck. There's also control decks. Control decks are sort of the exact opposite. Control decks are made to slow down the game instead of making it fast. You're doing cards and doing creatures that are made to prevent you from being attacked, prevent your opponents from doing anything major. You're sort of controlling the board. You're countering spells, you're controlling things, you're destroying things. You're doing everything you need to control the area and to sort of just turtle. That's a good way of saying it, turtle, to keep your game going slower and steadier until you get to a point in time where you can play the big spell, play the big creature, play the big combo, do something like that where you can throw stuff out that just wins you the game all of a sudden. That's what you're doing. You're just waiting until you have that chance to win the game. You're controlling the board until then, until you draw the right card, have enough mana, have everything set up. Now the next one to talk about is, of course, the combo deck. This one is similar to some of the other ones, but this is specifically around a number of combos. Combos are a set of 2 or more cards which work together in harmony so well, they're bound to get you sort of a win condition or get you really close. And when we talk about combos, we should also talk about synergy. Synergy means I have 2 cards and they work together well. This doesn't mean they're comboing together. It means that should I have them out, they give benefits to each other that work very well together. That's a synergy. We're going to talk about synergies more later on. But combos are made to work together for deadly combinations. There have been so many mana combos out there. I will tell you the first turn combo that I knew about from Unlimited. Mountain, Black Lotus, Channel, Fireball. Mountain, you play it on your first turn. Black Lotus costs you 0. You can sacrifice it for 3. So you have 1 red mana, sacrifice that for 3 green mana. Channel, Channel costs you 2 green mana. So now you have a red and a green left. The Channel says, for every 1 life I spend, I get 1 mana. So now I can spend 19 of my life to have 19 colorless mana in my mana pool. So I have 1 red, 1 green, 19. So I can add that green to my 19 to equal 20. Fireball costs you 1 red mana plus X. I now do 20 damage to my opponent. There you go. That is a combo. You can build a deck around just combos. Now that combo is a very old one and very hard to do since Black Lotus is ridiculously expensive. I saw it back in the day. I saw that at a point in time. I got hit by that in a game once back in my beginnings of playing Magic. It's really hard to get that off. But in a combo deck, traditionally you're going to have a play set of cards. A play set means I've got 4 of a kind. That's what it is. If I'm playing with an entire set of 4 cards, since that's the maximum amount I'm supposed to have in a deck normally, I have a play set. So I would usually have a play set of all the cards related to my combo to increase the chances of getting all of them. That's the point of the combo deck, to get the combo out as quickly and efficiently as possible. You could have a couple of combos, and what it is just usually 1 or 2 combos that your deck is built around, getting one of them out so that these combos are built to win you the game. That's what it is. You're not just using any you're not just using any other combos, you're using ones that are made to win you the game. That's a combo deck. And the last deck type I'm going to talk about is, of course, a ramp deck. A ramp deck is very similar to some of the other decks, but it works in a fundamentally different way. It's made to get mana out, whether through enchantments, artifacts, or creatures. It's made to make you have more and more mana until you get to a point where you can play these big creatures, and these big spells, and these spells that cost you X, and these things that cost you so much to play, these combos which are really expensive. whatever it is. Ramp deck is made to get you the mana to do it very fast. You're ramping up to these big things. Maybe you don't have any huge combos, but maybe you're ramping up to play a lot of really big creatures, or you're ramping up to a lot of really big spells, or you're ramping up to this big X-cost spell, which does this really awesome thing, like a fireball, for example. Whatever it is, you're ramping up to it in mana. Now there are hybrid decks, which are combinations of any of these sort of concepts put together. You could have an aggro control combo. They talk about these. They talk about a aggro ramp combo. They talk about all the different combinations of these decks. You could have 2 or even more combinations of it. You could have a deck which does all 3 of these effects. You really could. Granted, it's very hard to play, and it can cause some problems in your gameplay because combining them too much might slow it down. But when you talk about combining things like ramp and aggro, you're talking about a mid-range deck, or like control and aggro might be a deck that's made to go sort of middle of the ground, that you're not being a really slow deck and you're not being a really fast deck. You're made to be sort of steady deck and get there on time. So as I said, you're aiming for a 60-card deck. You want to do that in a pre-constructed deck, and you're going to want to look at all cards you have. So as I said, you figure out what colors you want. Things about colors I have to say. The more colors you have, the more tactics you're going to have, the more options you're going to have. But it's more likely to be slower, or you're more likely to get screwed over. The thing about more colors is there's more basic lands you have to have, or more non-basic lands, which you might only have 4 of them, for example. Colors are going to be more slower. The more colors you have, the slower the deck is, but the more versatile it is. That's the trade-off. So you could have a 5-color deck. It's probably going to be very slow, but it's going to be extremely versatile if you build it right. So when you're choosing your cards, you consider a certain number of things. You can consider cards that you like, that you think are really cool. Start with those. Think of cards that you think combo together or synergize very well. Look at your cards that you have. If you're looking at just light, look at this. Look for creatures that synergize, creatures that combo together, creatures and enchantments that combo together. Cards that you think, oh, this would be really great in my deck. Think about that. Start by just choosing all these cards, getting together a big set of cards. Aim for a certain amount. When I'm talking about a 60-card deck, you're aiming for 40 cards, because you're going to have 20 lands. Granted, you could go higher than that, but try not to. Just put all the cards you want together, things that you think synergize together. Also a big note is to think about cards that would counter opponents. Think of the different kind of opponents as you could face, and think about different cards which might help you deal with them. So you might want to disenchant, or you might want, if you're blue, you might want to counterspell. Things like that. You might want at least 1 or 2 of these cards, just in case it might come up when you're facing an opponent. Granted, you might not draw in your deck, but having it there as a backup means that there's a little bit of luck and a little bit of skill in getting it. So once you have all these cards, you're just going to keep going through them. You're going to sort of sort through your cards, you're going to take them out, you're going to taper down as much as you can, you're going to cut out cards. And that's what you do. You sort of get together a pile of cards, in the theme you want, in the concept you want, in whatever you're thinking about. You sort of have your basic archetype, you have your color, you have the cards that you're thinking, this will work in this archetype with what I'm trying to build. And then you just start cutting them out, one at a time. You say, like, this one, it's not as important. It's not as important, it's gone. Or this one, nah, it's not going to really work, it's gone. Or this one, I really like it, but this one's better, it's gone. And you keep doing that until you get as close to 40 as you're feeling comfortable with. Again, you could aim for 60 cards, and then you'd have 30 lands, and have a 90-card deck. You could do that. You could just go for that 40 card. You could have an even bigger deck. I have decks that get up close to 120 cards. And as soon as my decks are getting up in that card range, I start thinking about taking out cards to get it go down. The thing is, my decks, a lot of them, I think multiplayer, and that's why I'm allowing them to get that high. I haven't talked about multiplayer before, but multiplayer is usually slower. Aggro decks work terrible in multiplayer. I'm going to note that now. They're not this for it. They're good for single player because they're very fast and you really have to target one person. But targeting one person means you're leaving yourself open to other people and it might get the aggression of other people if you're being so aggressive. Hence why aggro are not the best for multiplayer. But I'm digressing a little bit. I've sort of brought in my sort of deck building philosophy. Because again, I prefer multiplayer to single player. I build that way. But even my multiplayer decks that I build can still work in single player because they follow these themes pretty well. I have an aggro goblin zombie deck, Zoblin deck. That's one of my decks. Perhaps I will tell you about some of the cards in some of my decks, kind of go over them, review them with you, teach you about them, to help you learn a little bit more about deck building. Anyway, that's it for this time. If you have any questions or comments, just leave them below. Anything you want to discuss, just write it down below. We'll talk about it in amongst each other. I'll try to comment on it. If you want to support this video, subscribe, join the Empire, become a citizen. We're always looking for more members. Our expanded community is what I enjoy. If you really want to support us, like the video. It shows that you enjoyed what I'm doing and you want me to do more. And share it with more people, because that's a way that we can get more citizens into the Empire, is you sharing it with other people. Now, until the next time, I bid you farewell.